Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, and we're here for another More Insights and Strategy podcast. And we are here to talk Edge AI with Keith Kressin, CEO and President of MemryX. Keith, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Pat. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Thanks for talking about Edge AI, and I look forward to today's discussion.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And Keith, you and I have known each other at this small little company called Qualcomm, where I saw you leading product teams, strategy, doing a little bit of marketing, but a real senior role in a real important tech company. Why did you decide to leave for MemryX, aside from the big title?
It really wasn't the title, but I really enjoyed Qualcomm, and Qualcomm's a great company, and I really enjoyed the folks there, and a lot of my good friends are there, and it's time with Cristiano. It's all great. Yeah. But at the same time, looking forward, to me, what's the most important technology for computing? And it's AI. And AI for the edge is tough to do. And I saw an opportunity to really ramp AI on the edge with MemryX. And so I thought, well, let's give it a shot. And I think we have a very good chance of being very successful.
No, that's great. So can you tell us a little bit more about the company? You've said, okay, we know it's AI and we know it's edge.
Yes.
What else, just to kind of get the conversation going and the audience knows we're playing here?
Yeah, that's right. So at least on the edge AI, consider like three segments. So first you have the higher powered segment, let's say 25 watts to hundreds of watts. Those typically go into servers for inference. Then you have the really low end edge, a Ring doorbell, recognize a human exists somewhere, really low power. They usually complete SoCs, and those are like less than a watt. And in between are things is edge AI for things like industrial PCs or drones or automobiles and so forth. And that's really where MemryX plays.
No, that's great. And, I wrote a Forbes article on the company, and I kind of came up with snark, which was, hey, does the world really need another AI company? Yeah. And y'all convinced me on it, but let's see how we do with the rest of the audience. No, seriously speaking, what is unique about the company in what you do? Because we have seen just a litany of AI companies come out.
Yeah. I think certainly there's no lack of people recognizing the opportunity. So, as the world moved from CPUs and then graphics started being prominent, and then there's adding graphics cards. I think there was about 40 or 50 companies doing adding graphics cards, and really NVIDIA and AMD emerged right out of that successfully. And now I think there's broad recognition that a similar thing's going to happen for AI as AI is offloaded. So it's not necessarily most important to be first. And actually, in this case, I think there's some advantage of coming in later. So we got to see how frameworks developed, understand the segmentation, and understand what's really important. And to me, the thing I recognized was really important is the ability to ramp and scale. And ramp and scale and ease of use were super critical. And that's why I joined MemryX, because I think they have a foundation to make that happen.
Well, Keith, I'm pretty sure all these AI companies say that they're easy to use, but on the other hand, when I talk to either OEMs or ODMs, it's consistently, I find the opposite to be true. And really, there's a ton of heavy lifting going on. What makes your solution truly easier to use?
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about it. Everyone says what's inhibiting the ramp of AI acceleration, and everybody answers it's difficult to use. Yeah. So then every vendor says, "Oh, we're easy to use," and so I was very skeptical when I first talked to MemryX because they made that claim, and I became a believer enough to leave Qualcomm and join as the CEO of MemryX. So MemryX, really the key is the architecture itself. It starts with the architecture. It's not that we have, smarter engineers that we can, optimize the AI models more quickly than someone else. It's really the fundamental architecture is designed to take any AI edge model, and in one click, we can compile and map it with very high utilization. So, sometimes you you compile a model, it doesn't run at all. So you have to support all the operators. Sometimes it runs, but not very efficient. So you need to spend a whole bunch of time tuning it. And very, very rarely does it run with high utilization and efficiency. But ours does pretty much every time. And we have a growing model zoo, and it really comes down to the basic core hardware architecture that MemryX chose. And I mean, I'm happy to tell you more about it. But
yeah, so I'll admit I was super skeptical when I first heard it come out of your mouth, but I really became a lot more of a believer in my research that I did in the run up to this Forbes article. I think you showed me a slide of how many models do you support with your very small team?
Yeah, we support more than 150 models. It's growing all the time. It's public models plus custom models. It's every major framework. So, PyTorch, Keras, TensorFlow Lite, Onyx. We support all the major frameworks. So literally a customer gives us a custom model, and the vast majority of the time we load it, we click the compile button, it loads the model, efficiently maps it, and creates an executable. And there are times where there's a unique custom operator that we need to manually decompose, but that's much more the exception than the rule. And it really doesn't take us much time to even optimize and run those models.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And the other part that it's funny I read about and I hear is that literally for every type of AI solution that's out there in the field today, any time you change the operating system, any time that you change some of the firmware, or any time that you change some of the middleware that goes into it, you have to run a new set of tests and make sure that that's effectively working. That kind of was a mind blower. And I know you talked about this one-click compiler. How does it really work?
Yeah. So, I mean, and I saw it firsthand in, previous roles as how complicated it was, how many software engineers you need. Then you upgrade the model, you get new inputs, you have to retrain. You have something in the field for years and years out. How do you take care of it? So it is an issue. And, how do we do it? It's a combination, it goes back to the architecture. But one, our architecture is a data flow architecture, not control flow. So traditional CPUs, GPUs, DSPs follow instructions.
Yeah.
But AI models are mathematical models. These are not instructions. These are math models. And they run in a much more closely to a data flow type architecture. So that's one. Second, we use at-memory computing. And so we have no external DRAM. The memory is local to the processing, very, very tightly coupled. And so we don't need to go off chip. And really the expertise of the company is on minimizing data movement. And really, I mean, this is kind of a secret sauce type thing, is we actually don't even have a network controller on the chip. We use memory itself as the fabric for connecting our compute engines. And you combine these things together and allows us an architecture that lends itself to scale and lends itself to mapping models efficiently on the hardware. And so now, we're very, very well positioned to scale across a number of markets.
So it seems like if you're moving data less, that would have a positive impact on power too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, the energy to move data is higher than the energy to compute data.
Crazy.
And so if you look at AI, the energy, if you compare the computing versus the moving dominates. It's not even close. And so really when you design efficient AI, you have to minimize the movement of data. So going off chip to DRAM, sending things across buses, that kills the efficiency of the chip. And so here on one side, we have great power performance. And on the other side, you get to compile and map it in one click. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
It sounds good. Let's talk, it's funny, usually we talk target markets and customers first, and we did allude to it a little bit. I mean, when you start with the power envelope that you're talking about, and the fact you're doing edge inference, you can kind of narrow in on that. But can you talk a little bit about your customers and target markets? And one thing I really appreciated when I looked at some of your deck, I will say, is some startups make the mistake of going after everybody.
Yeah.
And they go after everybody, they go after no one. And there are some very highly capitalized billion-dollar unicorns out there in AI that still are way too broad, I think, in what they're looking at.
Yeah, by the way, I agree with you. You want to do one thing really well. So our chip is an AI accelerator. We want to supplement and support SoCs. So if there's any SoC that needs additional compute power in terms of AI, we can attach to the USB or PCI Express port and provide it. We don't do the camera, we don't do DSPs, we just do AI and do it really well and scale. In terms of the target market, it is, like I mentioned, is data flow. Data flow architectures are ideal for streaming inputs. So the most popular streaming input for AI is camera based. And so anything computer vision based fits really well for our architecture. A lot of computer vision models are more mature, more efficient, and it's a really good fit. Each of our chips is about a watt. So we aren't going after battery powered devices, for example. We aren't going after edge servers, but we can aggregate multiple chips together. So applications, computer vision, 1 to 10 watts, we're really an ideal fit. And so that comes down to certain PC applications or auto applications, or really there's a large number of edge applications where, dumb cameras are becoming smart, and we're able to process that data quite well.
There also seems to be something here, Keith, that we now have competitive ICEs out there. We have x86, we have ARM, and we have RISC-V. And I've seen companies that need to support all three in what they do, but they don't want to multiply that even by the amount of AI that they're doing on the edge, and they want scalability. Is it possible for you to be an accelerator, maybe like a good, better, best type of thing that they've chosen a different host for, but they could be very consistent with their AI with MemryX?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that if you look at the matrix of the different CPUs, ISAs, all the different frameworks, all the different models, and all the different resolutions, it's a massive matrix. And so what we do is we attach to a USB or PCI Express. We can attach to any of the CPU ISAs. All we need to do is run the driver, and we have a different driver for each major OS. We already support multiple OSs, Linux versions, Ubuntu, Androids, soon to be Windows. So we basically just run the driver in the host, attach to the host, and all we ask the host to do besides running the driver is to send us data. So we don't exchange data with the host. The host basically just sends us like frames input. We send AI results back to the host for post-processing. And so it scales really well across architectures. And since we don't change the models, it's just raw trained models. So we take raw PyTorch, raw TensorFlow, raw Keras. We run that model. And so if you can't run a raw model and you need to retrain or you need dependency on the host, those are all things that add a lot of software support. We're a startup, and we don't require that. So again, it benefits us, it benefits our customers.
Oh, that's great stuff. So let's go from vision to reality here.
Yes.
Of silicon and end products. So what's the status of the silicon? When are you going to be shipping, and when might we expect some of these end products to be out there?
Yeah, great question. So, I joined last December, MemryX, and we were very quiet. And I didn't want to go out and talk until we had silicon in our hands. We had silicon for software development, but not silicon for sampling. Yeah. And so now we're talking. And so that is a sign that we have silicon in our hands. It's working. The actual results are actually a little better even than our simulated results across a lot of models. So we're just starting to sample now. So customers will get our pre-production silicon and our development kits over the next many months. Then we'll tape out our production silicon early next year and ramp production the second half of next year. So it's not far away. And our customers that we've sampled have been like amazed, like that we can give them accurate results on frame rates and latency. They can measure it and get it to work and up and running so quickly.
Yeah, you're one of the only one of these AI companies that really didn't say much until they sampled customers, which was last week. I mean, you weren't 100% stealth, but you really hadn't said much to anybody. And I recommend everybody to check out the show notes. I did. I think it's the first analysis on the company.
Yeah, I think so, Pat. Yeah, we were pretty quiet. We didn't update our website. We didn't explain our architecture. We haven't gone to hot chips or anything.
Yeah.
And our focus is prove it works, get something in our hands, just kind of show and tell instead of just PowerPoint. And then once people believe it, it just comes down to ramping the product successfully. And yeah, so we're making ourselves more visible now, and it's just a reflection of the confidence that we have in our solution.
Now that's great. So we talked about where the devices were. We talked about when we might expect the end products. How does it evolve? Like, what should we expect over the next couple years out of the company?
So it's funny, when I first joined, I mean, it looked great, right? But I had a couple questions on the roadmap, right? I used to lead roadmap planning. I can't look out, 1 or 2 generations. You got to look out further.
Yes.
And there's a lot of innovation in the pipe, not just new process technologies, but like new materials and chemistries, new types of mathematical operators, new types of models coming. And it's very rare, I think, for a startup, but the team architected the solution both at a micro level, our little MemryX compute engines, and at a chip level for scalability with the exact same software. So you'll see in the future, not just, new process nodes, not just embracing the universal chiplet interconnect interface, because we plan on a die to be on a package, but a lot of innovation incorporated into the architecture to continue to scale power performance much faster than Moore's law, and yet use the exact same software. So the software we have, we're actually in our 3rd generation chip. The first 2 proved it out. It's all the exact same software. So it continues backwards and it continues forward. So again, it goes back to that ability to easily scale and support a large number of customers. Known as at Qualcomm, we used to ship a lot of chips, as you know, Pat. And my goal isn't to ship a few chips, right? Our goal is to ship tens and hundreds of millions of AI accelerators.
Yeah. And by the way, it's very unique that any startup would look that far out. And listen, I understand the difference between looking at, the future of technology blocks and actually having a roadmap that might reflect that. And you have to, you have to sit into it. You have to fit into a certain shoe size too of budgets, right. Which, I'm just going to go out there on a limb and say a little bit harder than Qualcomm, but given the capitalization, but your focus, you're a very focused company as well. So right. But it is nice to hear that, because typically a startup, you're trying to get that one win, and then you're going to have a focused customer to help fund you past a certain point. And sometimes these companies have the ability, they drift, they get captive, and they're end up making a custom chip for one customer, and they forget about where they have to be tomorrow. So I do like that you're actually road mapping pretty far out into the future.
Oh yeah, we're looking out. Yeah, like I said, our next version, will be on a much more advanced process node and a UCIe, and then we're looking one step even beyond that. But the core of data flow at memory and using memory as the interconnect between the processing elements stay. And that's what links to the software, which links to the use, which will link to year after year software consistency. So yeah, we don't want to be a one company, do an ASIC development, they can use FPGAs or something. We really want to focus on scale, because AI's the future, right? Every device is getting more intelligence, and it makes sense to run AI in an AI accelerator.
Right.
And the question is, who's going to be the most successful in doing that? And we think we're really well positioned.
Well, and the software piece is fascinating too. And we'll kind of wrap this up. What I hear from a lot of end customers is, the hardware is great, but having to, work the software is impossible. either it's captive to one vendor, or there's a lot of hand work that goes into doing something. So anyways, Keith, I appreciate you coming on the show. Great insights here. Can't wait to hear for that first customer customer win out there. Well,
Oh
you're
yeah.
smiling. You probably have the win. You just can't tell us about it. But when you can tell us, I hope you use the More Insights and Strategy podcast to get that to get that out there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've known each other for a while, Pat. I really appreciate the time and the good questions. And I know you cover a lot of ground, and AI is important ground to cover. And thanks for taking time to talk to a little startup. And we'll do our best to make us both famous in the days ahead.
No, it sounds great, Keith. I appreciate that. So this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, signing off here with Keith Kressin of MemryX. If you like the show, hit that subscribe button. You have any complaints, you know where to find me on Twitter, or you want to hear something else, let me know. Anyways, have a great